The MicroKorg 2 has some big britches to fill. The original MicroKorg is one of, if not the best-selling synth of all time, and it's also probably the longest continuously manufactured synthesizer, having been introduced in 2002. The new version that Korg announced just ahead of NAMM 2024 stays largely true to the original design. It's small but solidly built. The mini keys might bother those with sausage fingers, but my slightly smaller than average hands didn't really have too much of a problem. Now, I did occasionally miss my mark slightly, but that has as much to do with my terrible keyboard skills as it does the compact keybed. The keybed itself is fine, nothing to write home about, that's for sure, but it's also not worth getting up in arms about. I've played plenty worse. The knobs and buttons, even on this prototype, felt solid, and the big rotary knob, which is kind of what gives a MicroKorg its visual identity, has very satisfying detents as you change the genre of your patch selection. While there are big signs in the Korg booth proclaiming that the MicroKorg 2 is still a prototype, the hardware already feels quite refined. Even the interface seems like it's at least nearly complete. The screen itself is bright and colorful with decent viewing angles. It did get a little washed out from extreme angles under the glare of the Anaheim Convention Center's lights, but it's unlikely to cause a problem in regular use. The UI is already looking pretty nice with some stylish animations as you change parameters, and changing the parameters is a lot easier than it was on the original MicroKorg, which had 2 edit selection knobs and a table you needed to look up what parameters were being controlled by which of the 5 knobs across the top. On the MicroKorg 2, things are much quicker. For example, pressing the button below the second knob cycles through the settings for oscillator 1, 2, 3, and the noise source. And the screen tells you what parameters are assigned to those knobs, depending on the page you've selected. It's hardly knob per function, but it could be worse. The one area where it was obvious that the MicroKorg 2 was still a prototype was in the presets. There were only 8 pre-programmed into the unit I tried, and the NAMM show floor wasn't exactly the ideal environment to do deep sound design. I did kick the tires on it a bit though, and was able to pretty quickly throw together some pretty decent sounding patches. And the handful of presets that Korg did have ready to go were bright and loaded with character. They were decidedly digital, but didn't feel clinical. Unfortunately, the Convention Center Hall was even less conducive to testing out the vocoder and harmonizer features. It was just impossible to get a clean enough signal with all of the cacophony going on around me. In general, the 8-voice or 4-voice in bitimbral mode 3 oscillator synth engine seems like a big upgrade from the original. It's got not just your standard virtual analog waves, but a selection of single-cycle waveforms and even samples that can be combined to create relatively complex-sounding patches. The one thing that the original does have over its successor, though, is price. While you can still go out to pretty much any music retailer and pick up a MicroKorg for $430, the MicroKorg 2 will set you back $699 when it goes on sale later this year. Thanks for watching, and for all of the latest synth news, stay tuned to Engadget.